Welcome to Grit Rising, brought to everybody by Entrepreneur Magazine and our good friend Garrett Patton. Today I have a legend of the combat fighting world on, Henry Cejudo. When you say legend, I don't say that lightly. When you start to research about your career, they call you things like the greatest combat fighter of all times, and those aren't terms that are used lightly. But I know that didn't come very easy, and especially when you think about the words grit and kind of the premise of this podcast, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the word grit means to you and a little bit about that kind of childhood and how you got to where you are today?
Oof. Well, when I think of grit, I think of going, overcoming the suffering or trying to do your best of overcoming a position where you're tangled, distressed, but yet you have that grit to just bite on that mouthpiece and continue to keep going forward. So when I think of grit, I think of that. I think of overcoming something that is not pleasing, but overcoming it and making it a mission to somewhat enjoy it.
You know, I was watching the Olympic trials this week and got me pumped and you know you were the youngest to ever win a gold medal, which is just an insane accomplishment. That doesn't come easy, especially from where you came from. When you think about how you described grit to becoming that Olympic champion, how different are those two feelings from overcoming to when you've overcome?
Oh, it's so different. I think we would have to after the grit. Grit you want to give the credit to, but the emotion of once you accomplish it, it's joy. So it's almost like maybe the opposite of grit is joy.
Yeah,
But that's the only that really comes to mind. Trent is because you go through the trenches. You get muddy, you get burned, you get cut, you get everything that's supposed to be happen. It's like you pay the price for it. So I think this is and this is the reason why people at the highest level they all have one thing in common when they become the best in the world, and it is grit. I mean, can you how tight can you hold down before you lose something? How the pain, the suffering, the agony of all these different emotions. But when it comes down to it, do you have all that? There's a price to be paid when it comes to success.
and you from an early age, nothing was given to you. Like you overcame and overcame kind of obstacle after obstacle, and part of that was choices that you made. You know, from when you really look into where you came from, and there was probably definitely some tendency to go make friends and go down a path in West Arizona that probably wasn't what most people were making. Instead, you made a choice to, hey, I want to go do wrestling. I want to go do something on my own. One of the best parts about wrestling or swimming, or I'm a track and field guy, is it's you. There's nobody else you can blame but yourself. So walk me through kind of those choices that you made, because you made several of those throughout your lifetime that have led to something greater.
Yeah, well, Trent, it all goes back to the nature, the nurture side of things. How I was raised, where I was raised, and I think typically like fighting starts from the upbringing. From the imagination and from personal experience of life, whether it's not having food at the house growing up, whether it's not whether wearing the same pair of clothes that I had to because I didn't have any clothes, whether Christmas came around and we didn't have we barely had enough money to buy food for us to being raised in the ghetto to being an immigrant son. I mean, I think the fighting started since birth. But we don't. I just quite honestly though, Trent, I just didn't know any better. Like you don't know what you don't know. It's
Yeah.
kind of like my environment is what's made me, and the choice of the dream is what's made me as well. I mean, of the imagination is like, hey, I have all this crazy life experience at a very young age. Why don't I take it into combat sports and then go out and actually do it? And like I tell people all the time, Trent, like My life got flipped upside down on a hot summer day of 1996. I was a 9-year-old boy, and I'll never forget it. Watching Michael Johnson shatter the world record with his infamous gold shoes in the 200, and I was just in awe. I was just in awe to be able to see this man. I was a 9-year-old boy at that time. We lived in a little trailer inside of a junkyard. And I'll never forget it because the TV would work half the time. So we'd have to like slap the side and make sure there's a hanger tip in the right. Make sure it was put at the right axis to get that connection. But that day I was meant to see that. And from fighting in the streets, for entertainment in the ghettos where I used to live, fighting for ice creams to find the sport of wrestling at a very young age. My brother fought wrestling junior high, and I decided to follow Trent. I felt like this is the best thing that you could do, and it's political. I'm not receiving these Mexican treats anymore, and I just felt like it was just love at first sight. And I think the aspiration, the admiration that I had to be just like Michael Johnson, to have that dream, to have it come alive, it was just second to none. So I think it's a mixture of both when we talk about all that. It's the experience that I've had in life, but also the dream of wanting to be the best in the world. And I'm a big fan of even now, like track and field. Like I'm watching the Olympic trials now. I'm actually going to Eugene, Oregon, in the next few days to actually go watch it live. So I love to study success. I love to study competition, and I think now as an Olympic champion, becoming the youngest in history in 2008 to a two-division champ in the UFC. I mean, if anything, Trent, I want to share the knowledge on how and why that's made me the person that I am today.
Yeah, I think that's the crux of what's so fascinating about you is when you look at the choices of A, choosing wrestling over joining a gang or doing something that's not productive. And then two, I think probably one of the craziest choices you made that paid off in a big way is, hey, this whole world has gone on this wrestling path of going to college, going to Penn State or Iowa or one of the big schools, and you saying Olympic champ is what I want to be, and going bypassing that route. Another choice that you just somehow internally knew. What do you where do you think that came from?
Yeah, well, I think in life you have choices. You have to make choices, and I think a lot of that determination just comes from really being in love with the dream, really being loyal to the dream, like really understanding that there's a price to pay for whatever it is that you want to obtain. I think, but I also do believe though too, Trent, it takes a special person. We can all have dreams and lofty dreams. We can all say we want this. Who's all waking up at 5 a.m. Who's
Yeah,
all willing to leave home? A junior year, your junior year in high school, to live at the Olympic Training Center for 4 years, where that's all you do is eat, sleep, train. I mean, talk about the most intense time of your life. And a lot of the reason why I foregone my college career was for that same to be all in, to be like it's all or nothing. I was getting I was getting scholarship offers from Harvard, from Yale, from Arizona State, from Iowa, Minnesota, Oklahoma State. I mean, the biggest schools that you could think of in Division One. So I was the number one recruit, but I just knew that I was that close that I could make an Olympic team, not just make an Olympic team, but actually win. So I pretty much bet on myself, Trent. Like I literally said, "Hey, you know what? Talk is cheap." I put my money where my mouth is, and I think the more that I was able to commit, and the more that I was in the nitty gritty, I was really kind of able to somewhat make it into a business, in the business sense, because there's no going back. There's no going back. I was, I couldn't compete in a Division One once I became pro. Once I took money, that was it, which wasn't a lot. But I go back to saying what is it and how is it that I'm going to be all in? And that's just going to be like, you know what? I'm going professional. I'm going to chase my Olympic dream. And on August 19th of 2008, that dream became a reality.
Yeah, from 2008 is what everybody talks about, right? When they see you. When you think about, for me as a runner, there's so many workouts where I fight demons, where I'm like, man, I should make excuses for myself today. I didn't eat right. I didn't do this right. So maybe I should take it easy and fight through it. You made those decisions so many times, so many days a week. And then you get to Beijing and you go, it's all worth it now, right?
Yeah. Once I get to, well, not really though, Trent. This is something that I will tell you. I remember making the Olympic team and just having to get into the Olympic Games. I was the last seed. I wasn't supposed to make the Olympic team. I had to beat the returning Olympic silver medalist to make the Olympic team. I mean, you're talking about fighting all odds. Foregoing my college career, 2 years out of high school, making the Olympic team, and then getting to the Olympic Games. I'll never forget it because this is some of the things that people don't talk about. Is I remember my mom was like playing games with me, and I was actually kind of thinking about it. And I was maybe about this close to pulling out of the Olympics, like running away. Like I've trained my whole life since I was a little kid. The dream of the 9-year-old kid watching Michael Johnson to finally making the Olympic team at the young age that I did, and then I get to the Olympic Games, and after these next 2 weeks, I was there for the opening ceremonies. I'm like, after these next 2 weeks, it's over. Like it's done. Like everything that I've ever set my mind to is like this is it. I'm just like, man. So it was kind of like a reality check, but at the same time, it played two parts in my mind. One, it was that aspect of this is it, like this is it. But then on the flip side, should I run away? Should I get on a plane and just go home? But then on the flip side, it was like I'm gonna compete like this is my last day on earth. I'm gonna compete like if I die tomorrow, I want to make sure that I am happy with my career. I want to make sure that I could die happy. It was just like this crazy philosophy from wanting to run away, like literally wanting to run away. And I've never thought that before in my life. To having the attitudes that, hey, you know what? I'm already in it. Like, if you're gonna beat me, you better kill me. And then throughout the Olympic Games, it was like I drew the world champion first round. My second match, I was losing that match. I was losing my second match, and I was losing my semifinals match to get into the finals. And I ended up coming from behind from everybody, and I make it to the finals eventually. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, it's just so surreal to me the fact that all the work that I've done, all the training that I've done, by the time I had like that 5 hour break from going to the finals, from the semis to the finals, like about a 5 hour break. And I'll never forget it because I remember going back to the hotel, and at this time, just like, man, it was so surreal because it was so surreal, but it was so nerve wracking. Like it was to the point, Trent, where I was like scared. Like I'm like, dude, I came all this way, and now I'm literally one match away from accomplishing my dream. I was so scared, Trent, like you wouldn't believe. Like I'm the type of guy that I could sleep through a marching band. I could sleep through a rap concert. I could do all that. But at this time, I couldn't. I tried doing everything to put myself to sleep, and those 5 hours felt like eternity. It felt like 24. It felt like 5 days. Just thinking, just laying in bed, and just like I cannot go to sleep. But I will say this, and this is crazy because this is all the time that I've mesmerized, that I've daydreamed in school, that I've ever thought about winning the Olympic Games. By the time I got to the arena, I was so damn calm. It was almost like those nerves just went out the window. Like no, this is your day. Like it was just another wrestling match. Like that's all it was. It was just another wrestling match. And I go out there. I go out there. My easiest match was in the finals, and then that's when I'll never forget it because it's so surreal. Is grabbing that American flag as an immigrant son, running around the wrestling match around the circle. Everybody chanting USA. I mean, my story was voted one of the most. It was voted second the most inspirational stories, only next to Michael Phelps' 8 gold medals. I mean, it was Michael Phelps, myself. I mean, they had Kobe Bryant under me. Like it was a trip, but it was voted by the media, by the people, as the second most inspirational story next to the one and only Michael Phelps with 8 Olympic gold medals.
That's the crazy thing about a sport like wrestling or track. So my love was watching Carl Lewis in 1984 in LA.
Yeah.
That's where I got started in my love for athletics and wanted to be in track one day. But when you look at that thought of running away, or you think about that calmness to you, you think for you it's more of a fear of failure, or just the like sweetness of success. So many high performers I talk to, people always think it's all about success, but a lot of it's that fear of failure. They've worked so hard they don't want to fail.
Yeah, I think thinking about it now, you're bringing it up, it was probably more of that. I think because we've worked so hard and we've been hurt more than we felt good, that was one of the biggest motivations why I became successful. As in the beginning of my career, was because of the love. At the end of my career, why I became champion is because I did not want to feel that hurt, man, of me preparing myself for my whole life, for the whole year, for the World Championships, and not scoring a point. That's exactly what happened in 2007. I made the World team. I represented the United States at the World Championships for wrestling in Baku, Azerbaijan in 2007, and I did not score a point. I got put out by the Iranian, and I felt so ready. But yet I was so ready, but yet the most disappointing, I feel like the most disappointing day of my life. It's almost like, man, how good am I? I mean, am I really cut out for this? Like, you get all these crazy questions, but I guess I've always kind of just set my dreams high, and I've always tried to stay focused. As hurtful as not becoming a world champion a year prior, or even scoring a point, that I had to continue to keep staying focused. But a lot of my motivation, Trick, came from not feeling the pain of losing. And I think even at the Olympic Games, and I said it in the beginning, but you're gonna have to kill me to beat me, because I am not going to continue to keep feeling that hurt. Like I stopped loving the sport, and I turned it into a somewhat business at the Olympic Games, and all this stuff happened within the span of 2 weeks, which is crazy. Which really was more like a week and a half before the games were over. And this is the mentality that got me to become the best in the world. And it's crazy to say that.
When I hear you say that, and I think about your story, and if I miss any of it, correct me, but you had a love for wrestling when you would eat. You'd go straight to the cafeteria for breakfast in the morning to make sure you had food, and straight in lunch because you didn't know if you were getting dinner that night. Mom is selling food on the street corner so that you can make it to Fargo to wrestle. And then the first time I think I heard that you slept in your own bed was at the Olympic Training Center. And then at one point it turns into a business. It's pretty crazy that you love with nothing around, and then it turns into a business when you have, start to have basic amenities. And that's a pretty fascinating evolution of just how far you came and all that you accomplished with nothing.
Yeah, but is it really nothing? What really makes us in life is our experiences. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like our bad experiences, what it really is. But I think as a kid, I just didn't know any better. I just did not know any better trip. Now that I'm a father, like as beautiful as being a world and Olympic champ is, I would never want my son or daughter to live through what I lived through because it's just different. It's just different now. It's like no, no, no. Well, I paid the way so your life could be better. And I think there's just different avenues and there's different ways to success. And I think to me is the reason why I'm such a patriot American. Like I named my daughter America for crying out loud is because of the opportunity, the endless opportunity that it's given me and my family. And I just feel like as an immigrant, as a son of immigrants, I'm just beyond thankful, beyond thankful to be able to represent the red, white, and blue. And I get a lot of heat from the Mexican community for this, but I tell people all the time, like I'm an American. You can't refer to me as anything else but an American because I was born in this country, I was raised in this country, and I don't believe in specifying somebody because of race or whatnot. So I just think a lot of what the United States has done, and a lot of characters. When I say characters, I'm talking about Olympic athletes, from a guy like Carl Lewis, who I've also studied as well. That they've helped pave the way for another American hero, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, that's I think when people think about the Olympics or even making it for wrestling, it's one guy per weight class. Like I'm watching the steeple last night, which was my event, and those top three guys all make it. That's three. that's
Yeah.
3 times as many. When you think about that, that's huge. When you're down to one,
Yeah, I actually saw it too. I saw that one. They were all
yeah.
so the top three. They were like hugging. They were just so ecstatic, man.
So those three are hugging, and in wrestling, you got one guy that's celebrating, and one guy that's just trained for 4 years to go back and train harder.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what it is, Trent. It's only one goes. Um, there's only seven at that time. There's only seven Olympic wrestlers that went to the Olympics. There's only seven Olympic champions in the whole entire world. In the world's oldest sport known to mankind. Wrestling is considered the oldest sport in the world. To be in the center of that and to be able to win in the oldest sport in the world is just maybe it doesn't get the attention it deserves. It's a sport that's very respected because people watch the UFC and they're like, hey man, all the wrestlers are if there's a wrestler, you always got to go that way. So I just feel like I just feel like it's perfect. It's perfect for me, Trent.
Yeah, more people know you from the UFC days, not necessarily from the wrestling days, because that's just kind of where we're at. You were able to turn your wrestling career into a very successful UFC kind of entrepreneurial type career. What was that transition like for you?
It was one. I didn't want to compete no more. So after the Olympics, because I accomplished everything I want to accomplish. Like those feelings that I had of not wrestling again, it was true. It was real. Because I did not wrestle for like the last 3 years of my wrestling career because I just didn't. I didn't have that love. It's almost like I lost the love completely. So I ended up coming back to the 2012 Olympic trials, and I tried to make the Olympic team, but I only had maybe like 8 matches in. I was getting sponsored by Coca-Cola, TD Ameritrade, Procter and Gamble, BMW, Adidas. I mean, I had sponsors left and right, so the motivation, the incentive was different. Was it the right motivation to come back? Probably not, but the opportunity it was worth it for me. The opportunity of really making good money off of all the hard work that I've done just makes sense to me. So I make it all the way up to the Olympic trials final semis. After 3 years of retirement, after coming back and only having about 8 matches of wrestling, and I made it all the way to the finals. I was all the way to the semifinals. I ended up losing. So then I officially retired from the sport of wrestling. And typically, what you do in wrestling is you'll grab your wrestling shoes and you'll leave them in the center of the mat, and then you wave and you say goodbye. But what I did is I took my wrestling shoes off, and this is in Iowa City, Iowa. And I'll never forget. I wanted the people to just stop bugging me about coming back. I threw my shoes into the crowd, like on one side, on the south side, and I grabbed the other one and threw it on the north side of the building. And I was just able to just say goodbye. I mean, this was like 15,000 people. 15,000 people that are screaming fans that understand the sport of wrestling. When I did that, I was able to say goodbye to the sport. Probably the most emotional day of my life. Probably the most emotional day of my life. But I knew that I was done with wrestling. But my spirit of competition, I still wanted to compete, and I wanted to do something different. So then that's how I started the sport of mixed martial arts. And where my love came from the sport of mixed martial arts was even when I was in wrestling. It was like my 8th grade, the summer year of my 7th grade year going into my 8th. I remember as a family we used to rent the Hollywood videos at Hollywood Videos, and it was the cassette tapes of watching UFC 1, 2, 3. We as a family we started watching a lot of those beginning fights, and we just started getting intrigued. So I knew at that time when I started watching the fighting. This is an 8th grade kid. I was probably like 14, 13 years old, but I knew that I wanted to fight because I saw wrestlers like Dan Severn, Mark Coleman, Randy Couture. A lot of the wrestlers were just having crazy success. Mark Coleman, like they all ended up doing really well, and they all became champions. And I'm just like, man, this is the next best thing. So after I retired from wrestling in 2012, I was 25 at that time. I knew that my next career was going to be in fighting. So by the age of 26, I ended up having my debut, and we started the fight game.
And then you went on to win titles in 2 different weight classes. Pretty insane rise to the top, even in that, to have a different sport, similar but different, and go on to do that. What was the biggest difference between UFC and the wrestling?
The biggest thing, the biggest difference. Well, the one you get hit, and there's no timeouts. But then the other one, which I talk about wrestling, it's a lot more competitive. Like you can get away with a lot more stuff in fighting than you would in wrestling. It's almost like you don't have to be technically sound like all around like in wrestling because it's such a developed sport that it was just a lot more technical, tactical, and you really just had to understand the game to a T. But in fighting, it's almost like a right hand, a powerful right hand, or your wrestling could pull you through. But overall, people ask me all the time, so what's harder not to become an Olympic champion or to be a 2-division UFC champion? And I tell people all the time, it's like, man, the Olympics is truly a dream come true. Like it's truly a once in a lifetime achievement, and your window of opportunity is slim. Like it's only for so long before the competition just gets ahead of you. So I always go back and I answer this like I don't even think there's a comparison. Like I think fighting is a lot easier on your body. Yeah, it looks a lot more brutal on TV, but it's a lot easier on your body. It's not as grueling as it was like training for the Olympics, and I've been able to become successful with it. The only simple fact that I embodied that Olympic spirit and I brought it over to the sport of mixed martial arts.
You mentioned earlier being a dad now, and if you were to take being a dad and then take kind of some of your mentors, whether it's your brother, your mom, Terry, your coach, kind of walk through, are there any things that stick out that you learned from them that you will pass down to your kids that are like, this was an impactful moment that I'm going to make sure that continues on?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing is like learn from your past. Learn from the past of others. Learn from the past of me. Like there's a reason why you should have mentors and coaches because they have they have walked in those shoes prior to you. And you know I got to give a big shout out to my coach Terry Brands. And the only reason why is because you know he was. And if you read up on his story, Terry Brands was the 1995 world champion, and in 1996, so and he comes from the lineage of Dan Gable of Iowa wrestling, like a Hawkeye. And those guys have one gear, and that one gear is to go hard. And but with Terry, it was like he was such a winner. He was all about winning. Like this guy is like a kamikaze. He'd be willing to. He'd be willing to kill to win. And 1996, Olympic Trials comes about, and he ends up losing in the finals to a guy by the name of Kendall Cross, who he's always beaten. And that loss for Terry just made him spiral. Like it just took him to another place where he almost became somewhat bitter with the sport. It was a hate love relationship with it. But I know that when Terry did not win that Olympic gold medal, or didn't make the Olympic team, and then in the finals in 1996, the guy that beat him, Kendall Cross, ended up winning a gold medal for the United States. Like, these are truly childhood dreams that we have as kids, and when that stuff doesn't happen, it's almost like I was able to see that chip on his shoulder for all these years. And I was just always think to myself, like, as much as I respect him as much as I love him, I don't want that chip on my damn shoulder. But that chip on the shoulder has also made him a hell of a great coach. Like he was able to coach me to an Olympic gold medal, but he was never really able to. And I don't think even till now, you can do your research now, and you can hear him talk about it. You can feel the sorrow in his voice. You can just feel like I feel bad saying bitterness of not being able to fulfill that lifelong dream that he's had since he was a kid. So the fact that I was able to see that at a very young age in high school, to be able for me to for his pain to be able to be transparent, where I was able to feel it and see it, is what also kind of drove me to be the best.
Yeah, it's
I don't know. I don't know if you've ever been with people around like that are just like that. There's not too many of them in this world, but I can only say like he's one of them. Like in the entire world.
When you read about his career and then kind of the end, and then you read about it's well documented how bitter, but you also wonder if some sort of divine way that was what helped him guide you to the promised land over time, or it's just unique how these things work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think this is why guys typically you don't have to be the best wrestler in the world to become, or best athlete in the world to become a great coach. You just have to know the experiences and what they've taught you, and how so that you can deliver it and convey it to the future generation. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with me.
When you think about passing that on to your own children, what do you think the number one quality is that you learned? Because as you mentioned, you want them to have a better life. You don't want them to go through the same suffering that you went through. So how do you wrestle, excuse that term, with the fact of like where your grit ultimately comes from, and how you try to create a better life for your children, and at the same time give them the grit that they need to be successful?
Yeah, and I think there's a syndrome too that if you're not careful, because if you've gone through a hardship, that you could spoil your kids, you could spoil them rotten, and I don't think you want to do that. I think my my theory on a lot of things are just have changed quite a bit, and I think I think the biggest thing is just communication. Obviously they're young now, but it's also done through love, but and also discipline. I think it's a mixture of a lot of things patience. It really goes back down to us because it's like monkey see, monkey do. Like whatever my kid sees me doing, that's more likely they're gonna follow. So I think I gotta produce more passion, which I do. I think if anybody goes off more on my kids, it's probably my wife.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of proud of that. I'm an alpha male, you know.
Well, she's my right now, but she's definitely harder on them than I am. But yeah, it's I think for my own, so I'm 22 and 18, and uniquely enough, they both followed me in track, and I think that there was a really good balance of discipline and expectations, and at the same time that unconditional love. And I'm so proud of what my kids have accomplished. They're running track in college right now, and it's just I see it on both sides, right? Those that want their kids to have a better life and spoil them, and the kids end up not being good kids, and then those that are so hard that their kids are like, I'm not listening, I'm out. So it's such a fine balance being a dad.
Wow, but the congratulations on your kids are they're doing track and field in college. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, those are the best days. Those are fun days as they grow up, and you get to go watch them compete, and those are definitely my best days now.
Yeah, God, man, I can only imagine. I hope my kids get into sports like that. I mean, it'll be a dream come true because I think it's important. I think it is important for a human, particularly our kids, to chase something, despite what the outcome may be. Like you just gotta go out there and actually go for it. I think that's the most important piece of it all is going for it.
I retired after 2001 U.S. champs. I wasn't good enough to make a world team, but I was good enough to go travel internationally. And I had that bitterness of I was done with the sport, and I didn't run for like 25 years. And then a couple of years ago, it was I wanted time with my daughter, I wanted time with my son, and I started running with them again. And so I didn't run for 25 years, and just brought it back up. And you got some good times ahead of you. Those are the best moments, man. It brought the passion back that I had lost because of my own disappointments, my own failures, where you just like you're beaten, you're doing more mileage than anybody else. But as you know, in a wrestling match or a race, 2 seconds you can make a mistake and you're done. It happens that fast. You got to be all in all the time, and so it's cool that you've got that perspective of where you are in terms of wrestling and then MMA and then now being a dad. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I can only imagine. I mean, obviously, Trent, you got you're a few years ahead of me, and so you know. I mean, and I think watching your kids now is like the best thing that we could do is just share our experiences, let them know that hey, man, you're gonna fail. You want to fail. I mean, the failures will be indicators on where you probably need to get better. And I think that's the biggest thing that I take from a lot of what I've succeeded. Thank God I've set out everything I set out to do and I've accomplished that. But also it's like, that you gotta share that piece that people don't talk about, the pain of losing, the self-doubt, the physical injuries, perspective. How do you view this injury? How do you manipulate your own self to be able to go out there and then do it again? I mean, how can you still produce? How do you go from love to turning something into a business to where you still succeed? And I feel like that's kind of where I've fallen. And I feel like if my kids do decide to play sports or do sports, that I'm gonna be the best mentor in that sense for them.
I'm excited for you, man. It's been good so far. We end every podcast with you get to ask me a question. I know you don't know me much, but anything you want to know?
No, I mean, honestly, Trent, I'm still, because it did take, obviously we did talk about grit, But I think in your position, it took you 25 years, man, to come back through your kids to be able to find that re-spark. I mean, I think the biggest question I have now is, do you have that love once again, like how you had it in the beginning after 25 years?
Yeah. So it's a good question, and now I do like masters track and whatever. You'll never be what you once were, and so I think that I made myself some promises. I made myself some promises that if I ever took it to a point where I fell out of love again, I wouldn't do that. So the 5 a.m. back in the day, you just didn't miss no matter what. That was what it is. Today, you'll give yourself some excuses to miss here and there. You'll eat different on the diet because, as you know, you're just so precise when you're trying to be the very best that all that fun and laughter, the difference between that last 10% is just another level, whether it's more mileage for us, more practice for you, more, dialing in the diet, passing on things. So I made myself that promise that I would continue to have fun. But we're meant to do things. Like you're meant to be really good at what you do. So when I got back into it, success came probably easier than I thought it would. And that's fun. That's fun. It's fun to win. Like somebody said, what makes you tick in life, and whether it's business or it's running or anything. I play a lot of soccer. It's winning. I love to win. I love to watch my kids win. I love to watch those around me be inspired to win. And so I think that you have those promises to yourself to not take it as seriously, so you have more fun, but at the same time, that competition is still there. That fire to win things is still there, and that it's good to get that back because you feel alive.
But that's what I'm talking about, Trent. It's different for everybody, and I think you just gotta find it, or it will eventually find you.
Yeah. I think too many people are afraid to fail, though, and so they don't find that passion. So they just kind of wander through. And you got beat early. You won a lot more than you lost. But as a high school kid, going up against bigger kid, or not bigger, but much more experienced kids, you still walk into that ring generally saying, it doesn't matter. I need to beat this guy or not. It doesn't matter that he's older. For me, it doesn't matter that I'm older. I still want to win races. And so those failures, they're good for us, but you also still got to hate them.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
And then in business today, it's that same. I hate losing deals. I hate when we don't close something, or when we lose a good client. Like that drives me nuts. I don't sleep after that stuff. So it transfers into other parts of life too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, now I'm transitioning into business now. So I have I'm in real estate development, and I also I do a lot of content for like YouTube. I have a major podcast too that's called Pound for Pound, with another great MMA fighter that we just started. I have a lot of plans. Like I want to do a children's book. Right now, like I'm working on like doing children's books for like real life stories, where you could kind of inspire your kids every night, like talking about Henry Cejudo, son of immigrants, parents came from Mexico, migrated here, like tell the whole story, but doing in a very real way to these kids, rather than just a Disneyland story. I want to create a series of children's books for these 3-4-year-old kids, from maybe from 3 to 7, on how is it that you can inspire a kid to through sports while telling these real stories. So I'm working on that. I mean, there's a lot of great things. A documentary too, as well. My story. There's a lot of good things in the work. But now I think the next transition in my life, because I don't have that many fights left. I personally love business, Trent. I think it's been good.
Well, you're gonna have a lot of new fans after this, and I'm especially excited to see your story, your children's book. your documentary. I think it's such a powerful. We didn't even get into what it was like as much growing up as a kid in the different neighborhoods and moving to different houses, but what you've overcome is so inspirational. So if you can lead other people to see through and see, hey, I can get through my current situation and come out so much greater on the other side. That's gonna be fun to watch, man.
Yeah, of course. And Trent, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the call. Trent, I really enjoyed chit chatting with you, and hopefully I could catch you in the future and meet you personally.
We'll catch up soon. I know between Danny and Garrett, we'll get some time together.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate it once again, Trent.
All right, bud. Take care. Have a great rest of the day.